Power has always carried with it a hidden invoice. We rarely see it when we hunger for it, when we're desperate to survive, when we clutch at the illusion that power might shield us from chaos. But when the silence falls and the dust clears, we find ourselves staring into the fine print, humanity itself, stamped in red, sold off piece by piece to pay the bill. That is the real terror Stephen King whispers through The Stand. Not the virus that wipes out civilization, not the empty highways or the corpses rotting in living rooms, but the human willingness to trade conscience for survival, to sacrifice compassion for control, to watch morality burn if only it lights our path to dominance. When civilization collapses, the veneer of order disappears. We like to think of law and structure as permanent fixtures, pillars that hold us upright. But strip away the rules, the electricity, the comfort of full supermarkets and busy streets, and what's left? Fear, hunger, the brutal weight of choice. And in those choices, the face of true power emerges on raw, ungoverned, stained with the blood of conscience. King never paints villains as monsters from birth. He paints them as neighbors, colleagues, broken people who begin with small justifications. I only did what I had to do. I only wanted to live. But survival, when stripped of humanity, becomes nothing more than cruelty in a different disguise. There is a sickness in the heart of man that no plague can rival, the addiction to control. In The Stand, we see it embodied in figures like Randall Flagg, the dark magnet who gathers the desperate, the angry, the lost. Why? Because fear craves authority. People want someone to tell them what to do, to hand over their trembling autonomy to a voice that promises safety, vengeance, purpose. Power grows in the soil of fear, and every time fear takes root, compassion withers. That is the currency. We pay for the comfort of someone else making decisions by abandoning our moral compass. But do we not all carry a piece of Flagg within us? That quiet voice that whispers, "If the world burned tomorrow, what would you do to survive? Whose life would you trade for your own? What rules would you break if no one remained to enforce them?" We reassure ourselves, "I am good. I am moral. I would not fall." Yet morality is fragile glass. Under enough pressure, it cracks. And once it cracks, it doesn't matter how noble the intention. Shards still cut, still draw blood. Think of the moments in your life when you've bent your principles for convenience, for ambition, for desire. Maybe you justified cruelty as honesty. Maybe you sacrificed kindness in the name of efficiency. Maybe you silenced someone weaker because it was easier to walk past than to intervene. None of us are immune, and the plague that King describes is merely the stage. The collapse of society strips away the excuses and lays bare the choices. In that raw space, humanity is either honored or sold, and too often, it is sold cheap. What frightens us is not simply the apocalypse, but the mirror it holds to our own faces. A pandemic in King's world kills millions, but the true devastation is the moral test it forces on the survivors. What is power worth when the price is your soul? How far do you walk into darkness before you realize you can no longer turn back? We see characters who build, who forgive, who cling to the threads of compassion even as the world howls around them. But we also see those who barter away mercy, who burn their empathy as fuel, who see in chaos not tragedy, but opportunity. Which side feels more familiar to you when you close your eyes at night? Which side would you fall to if the rules vanished? The struggle isn't only in grand apocalyptic gestures, it lives in the small, almost invisible exchanges. The man who hoards food when his neighbor is starving. The woman who keeps silent while cruelty thrives because speaking out would risk her own fragile comfort. The leader who promises hope but demands obedience, extracting loyalty through fear. Power doesn't always announce itself with armies and flags. Sometimes it's the quiet shifting of conscience, the subtle rationalization that allows you to say, "This isn't really wrong. It's necessary." But necessity is a word often painted with blood. King understood that real horror is not the collapse of buildings, but the collapse of integrity. A man who betrays his conscience is already diseased, already broken, even if his body thrives. The real currency of survival is not food, not guns, not shelter. It is humanity. And every act of cruelty, every silence in the face of injustice, every surrender to fear is another coin spent. Another piece of humanity stripped away. You can wake up one morning alive but empty, breathing but hollow, powerful but damned. And isn't that the same lesson our modern world whispers? Even without the plague, look around, in offices, in politics, in the glow of our screens. How often do we trade kindness for control, empathy for dominance, humility for the illusion of superiority? Every bargain chips away at us. We may not call it apocalypse, but the corrosion is real. It is slower, quieter, but no less destructive. For what is a society that thrives materially, but bankrupts itself morally? What is a man who wins every battle but loses every ounce of compassion along the way? The currency is always the same: humanity. And the cost is always greater than we first imagine. The moment you believe you can buy survival, status, or victory by abandoning mercy, you have already stepped into Flagg's camp. You may not hear his voice, but his philosophy lives in the cracks of your choices. And so the haunting question remains: if the day came when the world demanded a price, how much of your humanity would you be willing to spend? Underneath every pursuit of power, there lies an unspoken confession. I am afraid. Fear is the seed, and power is the armor we wrap around ourselves to hide the trembling within. In the stand, King shows us that fear doesn't vanish when the old world dies. It multiplies. Without the anchors of routine, without the safety nets of society, fear blossoms into something feral, ravenous, and people, in their desperation, seek leaders not because they believe in their goodness, but because they cannot bear the weight of choosing alone. They would rather kneel to cruelty than stand trembling in uncertainty. This is where the cost begins to carve its mark. Every compromise of morality buys a fleeting moment of reassurance, like trading gold for ash in the camp of Flagg. Obedience is rewarded, dissent is punished, and fear masquerades as loyalty. Yet how different is this, truly, from the world we know? Haven't we seen countless moments in history where masses traded their voices for the illusion of security, where cruelty flourished because silence was easier, because questioning was dangerous? The collapse in King's novel is only a mirror reflecting back what humanity has always been capable of. Our apocalypse is not new. It is simply stripped of pretense. The criminal psychology of making a mistake lies in how mistakes rarely announce themselves as such. They creep in quietly, disguised as necessity, justified as pragmatism. A man tells himself he steals because he must eat. A leader tells herself she silences dissent because unity is vital. A community convinces itself that cruelty is justice, that violence is cleansing. Every step makes sense in isolation, but together, they form a descent, a staircase leading downward into darkness, and by the time one looks back, the light above has already dimmed. That is the danger of survival stripped of conscience, the incremental cost, the slow erosion, the steady spending of humanity coin by coin, yet in the rubble. King also places his fragile lights, those who resist the temptation of power bought with cruelty. They are not flawless. They are haunted, trembling, broken in their own ways. But they cling, with bloodied fingers, to compassion, to faith, to the stubborn belief that survival without humanity is not survival at all. It is damnation. And it is here that the deepest struggle emerges, the internal war between the beast that says take, dominate, control, and the conscience that whispers give, forgive, protect. That war is fought in silence, in solitude, in the small hours of the night when fear gnaws and there is no audience to applaud your choice. That war is the true cost of power. Consider the times in your life when you have stood at the crossroads of this silent war. Maybe no one saw you. Maybe it was something small, whether to speak up for someone humiliated in public, whether to admit fault when a lie would be easier, whether to act with kindness when cruelty promised reward. Did you feel the pull of both voices? Did you hear the beast promising strength if only you betrayed your conscience? We like to think of evil as distant, as other. But the truth is more uncomfortable. Evil is domestic, intimate, woven into the fibers of our daily choices. And the apocalypse in The Stand simply tears down the walls that allow us to pretend otherwise. This is where the emotional struggle deepens. For the cost of power is not only external, it is internal. It stains the soul, reshapes the psyche, forces the individual into endless rationalizations. A man who kills to secure his authority cannot rest at night without weaving a story in which he is hero, not villain. A woman who turns her back on compassion must whisper to herself that she was merely being strong, merely being realistic. The human mind, when faced with the horror of its own betrayal, constructs elaborate lies to survive itself, and yet the lies corrode, piece by piece, until what remains is not a person but a husk wrapped in excuses. King understood this with piercing clarity. The enemy is not only outside, but inside. Randall Flagg may gather his armies, but his truest ally is the weakness already present in the human heart. Every compromise, every silence, every act of cruelty done in the name of survival makes Flagg stronger. Evil doesn't need to create soldiers. It only needs to awaken what was already dormant. That is the most terrifying truth of all. And so, the question lingers like smoke after fire. Is power ever worth the price if the currency is humanity? When you trade kindness for control, when you silence compassion to amplify authority, when you spend mercy to purchase obedience, what have you gained? Really? And what have you lost that you can never buy back? The Stand leaves us staring into that void. But it is not merely fiction. It is a reflection of our own society, our own fragile moral balances, our own daily bargains. The apocalypse is here already, in miniature, in the choices we make when no one is watching. Power does not arrive with horns and fire. It arrives with promises of order in chaos, of justice in the wake of cruelty, of safety for those trembling in the dark. It is seductive because it speaks directly to our most primal needs. When fear has hollowed us out, when grief has chewed through our resolve, the voice that offers certainty becomes irresistible. This is why Flagg thrives in the stand. He does not build his empire on strength alone. He builds it on the human longing to believe that someone else has the answers. Someone else has the plan. Someone else is willing to do the terrible things so that we don't have to. And yet that comfort comes at a price. Every time you surrender your conscience to another, you are not being saved, you are being purchased. This is the paradox of power when humanity is the currency. You may gain control, but you lose the very thing worth controlling for. It is like a man who sells his heart to keep his body alive. He may walk, speak, and breathe, but inside, he is dead already. That is why the communities in King's story splinter, not because of the plague, but because of the choices that follow. The virus may end lives, but it is betrayal, fear, and cruelty that end souls. Survival alone is not enough. To live without humanity is to simply extend the grave. And what of those who resist? What of those who cling to mercy even as their world burns? They are not saints. They are not immune to rage or despair. They break down. They falter. They doubt themselves. But the difference lies in what they choose to protect. They know the cost of cruelty, the way it poisons from within, and they refuse to spend what they cannot reclaim. It is not an easy choice. It is never easy. Compassion is heavy when the world demands speed. Forgiveness feels foolish when violence promises victory. Kindness seems fragile when cruelty looks strong. But the strength of humanity has always been measured not by its violence, but by its restraint. The psychology of cruelty, once embraced, is addictive. A man who finds power in domination rarely surrenders it willingly. The rush of control, the thrill of fear in another's eyes, the ease of bending others to your will, it is intoxicating. And like any addiction, it demands more. One act of cruelty becomes 2, then 10, until the individual no longer remembers who they were before. King paints this descent with brutal honesty. Cruelty becomes identity. The abuser becomes inseparable from his abuse. The tyrant is no longer a man who commits evil acts. He is evil itself, clothed in flesh. That is the true cost of spending humanity for power. You do not simply lose compassion, you become its opposite. And still, we must ask ourselves, how different are we? Really, have we not seen this hunger for power repeat across generations, across governments, across families, across the hidden corners of our own lives? The parent who rules with terror instead of love. The boss who manipulates instead of leads. The politician who thrives on division instead of unity. The friend who controls with guilt instead of care. These are not stories of fiction. They are the echoes of our everyday existence. And if the stand terrifies us, it is because it strips away the setting and reveals the naked truth, that the apocalypse is only a stage upon which the old human tragedies replay, louder and sharper, but not new. The emotional struggle lies in how much weight the human spirit can bear before it fractures, Imagine standing in the ruins of everything you once trusted. Imagine hunger gnawing, grief clawing, fear screaming. What would you cling to? Would you clutch your morality like a torch in the dark? Or would you extinguish it to conserve your strength? This is the heart of the story. Survival is not enough. Survival must mean something. Otherwise, we are only ghosts haunting the shell of a dead world. Power that costs humanity is never sustainable. It devours itself. Flagg's empire, like all empires built on fear, rots from the inside. The cracks appear when obedience becomes unbearable, when cruelty becomes too familiar, when those who sold their humanity realized the deal gave them nothing but emptiness. And yet, the collapse of such power does not restore what was lost. Those who traded compassion cannot simply reclaim it. Once humanity is sold, it cannot be repurchased at any price. That is the tragedy King unveils. Not that power corrupts, but that once corrupted, the soul does not return untouched. So we are left with the echoing question: what is power if it costs you yourself? Can you truly lead when your hands drip with the blood of your own compassion? Can you truly survive if, in surviving, you become unrecognizable even to your own reflection? And if so, is that survival? Or is it simply another form of death? The world of The Stand may be fiction, but the question it asks is eternal. When the cost of power is humanity, will you pay? The most haunting truth about power is that it never announces its full cost up front. It lures you with small, affordable payments, like a loan whose interest you cannot see until it consumes you. In The Stand, people don't wake up one morning and decide to betray their humanity. They lose it in increments. A lie here, a silence there. A cruelty committed under the banner of necessity. And slowly, without noticing, the bill grows until it demands everything. Humanity is not ripped from them. It is bartered away, willingly, piece by piece, until nothing remains. We live in a world not so different. No virus has emptied our cities. But how often do we trade our conscience for convenience, our compassion for ambition, our integrity for acceptance? We tell ourselves the compromises are small, harmless, practical. We tell ourselves everyone does it. But every compromise is a transaction. And though we cannot see the balance sheet, the cost accrues until one day we wake up powerful, perhaps, successful, perhaps, but hollow, estranged from the person we once hoped to be. That is the hidden horror King forces us to face, that the apocalypse is only an accelerated version of what we already do to ourselves. The emotional struggle is not simply survival, it is memory. To remember who we are when the world tempts us to forget. To hold on to values that feel useless in the face of cruelty. To choose mercy even when mercy gains nothing. That choice feels impossible in the aftermath of collapse. But it is no less difficult in the ordinary silence of our daily lives. The boss demands loyalty at the expense of honesty. The crowd mocks someone weaker, and joining in would feel safer than resisting. The family teaches silence in the face of wrongs, and speaking out would mean exile. These are not apocalyptic trials. They are daily crucibles. And each decision asks the same question. How much of yourself will you spend today? Flagg represents more than a villain. He is the embodiment of every whisper that tells us cruelty is easier. Fear is safer, and domination is strength. He thrives because people want shortcuts, because the burden of conscience feels too heavy. Yet his followers always learn too late that power without humanity is not victory. It is enslavement to the very darkness they hope to escape. They bow to him thinking they are protected, but in truth they are chained, prisoners to their own fear, unable to reclaim what they traded away. The cost of power is also the weight of regret. Characters in The Stand who choose cruelty do not escape their guilt. It festers, gnaws, corrupts from the inside. Some drown it in obedience, others in violence, others in desperate attempts at justification. But guilt is the echo of humanity, and though it may grow faint, it never vanishes. This is true for us, too. We remember the faces we betrayed, the silences we maintained, the kindnesses we withheld. The past never lets go. And the ghosts we create by spending our humanity become our lifelong companions. And yet, King insists there is another path, fragile, difficult, uncertain, but real. It is the path of those who refuse to pay the price, who cling to conscience even when it costs them safety, who protect the weak not because it is practical, but because it is right, who rebuild not with iron and fire, but with trust and forgiveness. These characters are not flawless, not invulnerable. They cry, they doubt, they break, but they also remind us that humanity can survive if we refuse to sell it, that compassion can outlast cruelty, that even in the ashes, the soul can endure. This is where the mirror turns toward us most sharply, because the apocalypse is not required for this choice to matter. Every day, in ways seen and unseen, we are asked to spend or to save our humanity. Do we treat others as currency for our ambitions? Do we justify cruelty in the name of survival? Do we silence compassion to feel powerful? Or do we pay the harder price, vulnerability, humility, restraint, in order to preserve the only treasure that cannot be replaced? The cost of power when humanity is the currency is always greater than what we believe we can afford. It drains us, hollows us, leaves us haunted by what we cannot buy back. And when the world is stripped bare, when all else is lost, what remains is not the towers we build, nor the victories we claim, but the measure of how much of ourselves we manage to keep intact. That is the question King leaves burning in the reader's chest when the final bill arrives. Will you recognize the person who pays it? So, ask yourself now, in the quiet, before the storm comes, how much of your humanity have you already spent? How much more are you willing to trade? And when the last page is written, when survival itself is no longer in question, will the person who remains still be you? When the world burns down to its bones, when the air itself tastes of ash and the silence of death hangs like a shroud, you discover that power was never the point. It was never the destination. It was only the temptation. The true story has always been about what you are willing to trade for it. In The Stand, those who bow to Flagg do not merely follow a leader. They abandon themselves. They become vessels, emptied of conscience, filled with obedience, their humanity mortgaged to purchase a counterfeit version of safety. They survive. Yes, but survival without soul is nothing but a slower kind of death. This is the ultimate cruelty of power when humanity is the currency. It tricks you into thinking you are gaining while you are actually being stripped bare. It convinces you that cruelty is strength, that silence is wisdom, that submission is protection. And by the time you realize the bill is due, Your soul has already been spent, your reflection already unrecognizable. That is the brilliance and horror of King's vision. He reminds us that evil does not need to destroy us directly. It only needs to make us complicit in our own undoing. Yet, there is hope. Though it is small, fragile, easily overlooked, it lives in those who resist even when resistance looks like madness. It lives in those who choose to forgive when vengeance burns hotter, who extend kindness when cruelty demands obedience, who speak truth when silence would be safer. These acts may look weak, but in truth, they are the strongest currency of all. Because they preserve what cannot be bought, cannot be replicated, cannot be faked, humanity itself. The emotional struggle King leaves us with is not whether we could survive the collapse of civilization. It is whether we could survive ourselves. Whether we could walk through the fire of fear and temptation without selling the last pieces of who we are. Whether we could look into the mirror after all is said and done and still see a human being staring back, instead of a hollow shell. And perhaps that is why The Stand continues to echo decades after it was written, because deep down, we know the apocalypse is not only about the end of the world. It is about the choices we make now, in the small crucibles of daily life, in the ordinary moments where no one is watching. The cost of power is always being calculated, and the currency is always the same, whether in a shattered wasteland or in the ordinary grind of our cities and offices. The bill comes due in the measure of our compassion, our courage, our willingness to protect our own humanity. So I leave you with the question that should haunt you as much as it haunted King's survivors. When the world demands a price, when fear whispers that cruelty is easier, when silence feels safer than truth, will you pay with your humanity or will you resist, even if it costs you everything else? Because in the end, power fades, kingdoms crumble, leaders fall, but the currency of the soul, once spent, is gone forever. And that, perhaps, is the only true horror worth fearing.